What is going on, Planet S.O.N family? It's your main man, JD. Thank you for tuning in. For those of you who don't know, I was in the military for 10 years, and here's a random story from my time in the military. Now, before I start the story, please make sure you subscribe and make sure you hit that like button for me so it can help me out in the YouTube algorithm. Thanks. Alright, so I gotta introduce you guys to a term. I don't want to say that I coined it, but I didn't hear it from anybody else, but I know that I used to use it a lot. So I don't know where I got it from. Like I said, I think I just created it, but I don't want to take credit for it. But I mean, maybe you guys could tell me who created it, but whatever. So this term is deployment dodger. Now, these are the type of people who I hate the most. Well, I guess let me give you the definition and also let me give you a background on the word and then I'll tell the story. So a deployment dodger is someone who dodges deployments, someone who tries to get out of deploying to the war. You know, I'm talking about deployments to Afghanistan, deployments to Iraq, Kuwait, Qatar, Turkey, Kyrgyzstan, you know, all those places in the Middle East and Southeast Asia where we're currently in, or since we've been in since September 11, 2001. But here's the catch. The deployment dodgers are only people who are currently in the service, because you can't be a deployment dodger if you're not even in the service. So these are military members who try their best to get out of serving in the Middle East. And these people are the people who I hate the most in the military. Like, it gets me pissed off just thinking about them. Because mind you, for those of you who don't know, here's a little bit about my background of my military service. So I served a total of 10 years. My first 7 years in the service, I spent overseas, literally living in other countries. And me, as a Southern California kid who was born and raised in Southern California, my last 3 years in the service were on the East Coast. So I was nowhere near my hometown, my home state for 10 years. Well, obviously other than vacation time, but not because of military service. Also, I deployed 4 times to the Middle East, and that's a total of over 2 years of serving in the war. I'm talking about back-to-back deployments to Afghanistan. I've been to Iraq, I've been to Qatar, I've been to Kyrgyzstan, I've been to Kuwait. You know, I made my rounds in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia. So for me, for people who try their best to try to get out of deployments to the Middle East, it really just pisses me off. So that's why I guess I could talk about it and shame these people, because at the same time, I earned my stripes and I know that I proudly served my country during wartime. So hey, at least I did my part in the war, obviously because of September 11th. So let's talk about where the term comes from a little bit. So you know how we're talking about deployment dodger? Well, it's kind of like play on words to draft dodger. Now the term draft dodger was made infamous like during the 50s and 60s and 70s, because that's just modern day history where like at least we could see draft dodgers on TV and you know we could read the newspaper and read how people are just not wanting to go to war. But I mean, I'm pretty sure in like mankind's history, I'm pretty sure people were just trying to dodge the draft as much as possible in every war. I'm pretty sure a lot of Egyptians were like, man, I really don't want to fight in the Pharaoh's army. All I'm saying is that in human history, plenty of men did not want to go to war. But the draft dodger term was just made infamous during the 50s, 60s, and 70s, you know, during the Korean War and also the Vietnam War. Mostly in the Vietnam War because, you know, that was just an ugly war and a lot of people were against it. And to this day, you know, people are still confused about the US getting into that war. And hindsight, people could say that people who didn't want to go to Vietnam when they were drafted, that in the end, you know, they were right. You know, I read somewhere that over 500,000 men denied their orders when they got drafted for the Vietnam War. And I mean, there's a lot of ways to get out of it. I mean, some people moved to Mexico and some people moved to Canada. And obviously, if your family came from money, you know, your daddy could get you out of it. But I mean, you can't really blame these people who try to dodge a draft, because at the end of the day, if they don't want to go to war, you know, why force anybody? And me as a military veteran, I know that I would want to go to war with people who actually want to be there. I can only imagine being at war and, you know, you're right there next to a guy who doesn't want to be there. So that just means that he's probably not going to protect you and he's probably not going to help you out. So that means that you're just in a bad situation. So like I said, I'd rather just be at war with someone who wants to be there instead of someone who's forced to be there. Because in the end, it just doesn't benefit anybody. You know, one of the most famous people who dodged the draft back in the 60s was Muhammad Ali. And I mean, he just didn't want to go to Vietnam. And you know, it was just this big deal. You know, he lost his fighting license. He even got his title taken away, his heavyweight title taken away. And I mean, hindsight, you know, we all believe that, you know, he was right. But at the time, you know, I can only imagine what he was going through. I remember he answered with this one famous quote when someone asked him, like, hey, you know, why don't you want to go to war and you know, fulfill your obligation to getting drafted? And he told the interviewer, he said, man, the Viet Cong never called me the N-word. And it's like, well, imagine a black man in the 60s in America being forced to fight in a war that nobody agrees with, especially when you're the heavyweight champion in the world. You know, I can only imagine what he was going through. And yeah, it was also religious reasons, but at the same time, I mean, can you blame Muhammad Ali? You know, he wasn't wrong. You know, that man was correct. And I'm proud of people who stand up for themselves and stand up for their beliefs. And me, as a person who is in my generation, I 100% agree with Muhammad Ali in the fact that he just didn't want to be a part of the Vietnam War. So I really don't blame draft dodgers. Like, I don't have hatred or animosity, and I don't think they should be shamed for not wanting to go to war. I mean, if you think about these statistics, where only 1% of the United States population is currently serving in all 6 branches, and that includes active duty, reserve, and guardsmen. And only 6% of the United States population are veterans who served in different wars. So mind you, only 1% is currently serving. So that means that there's a lot of people out there in the United States who just don't want to serve. And that's okay. You know, I saw this interview of Montel Williams. Yes, the same Montel Williams who had a show. The same Montel Williams who dated the vice president. He was a military officer. And after he got out of the service, you know, obviously he became famous Montel Williams. And as he was rubbing elbows with rich Americans in the Hamptons, you know, he would talk about his military service, and these rich Americans would explain how rich Americans shouldn't go to war, how they shouldn't be serving, how they shouldn't do anything for their country as far as military service. And they even describe how, you know, lower income people should be doing their part to serve this country. So basically, the belief of the elite is that it's a rich older man's war, but it's a poor young man's battle. You know, and it could sometimes be unfair. Some people just feel like they already entitled to what we have here in our country, and they don't have to serve. You know, especially if you come from money, you know, you just feel like, hey, people at lower income levels, you know, need to serve you. So, but hey, that's just how America is. And that's why I don't blame people who were drafted into wars that they didn't want to go to. I mean, because I'm pretty sure statistically, I mean, I don't even have to look these numbers up, but I'm pretty sure Americans who died in Vietnam, they didn't come from wealthy families. And I don't even have to look that up. Anyway, the point is that I agree with draft dodgers. I don't think that it was bad for them to not go to war if they didn't want to go to war. I mean, some people wanted to go to war. I was a person who was motivated and thought that, you know, I needed to do my part in the war, and that's why I volunteered. You know, I wasn't forced to enlist, and I wasn't forced to re-enlist. I wanted to be there. So, like I said, I don't think we should ever shame a draft dodger. So, draft dodgers, you're okay with me. Now, let's talk about deployment dodgers. The military members who I hate the most. Okay, so I have plenty of stories of these cowards, about these weak people who did their best to never, ever go to the Middle East. But let me just focus on one story right now. Let me just tell this story, and in the future, I'll tell you more stories about these cowards. Okay, so this story takes place around 2015. So I was stationed in Langley, Virginia. And around this time of my military service, I was in for like 9 years. Literally, I was already asked to re-enlist again because my contract was about to be up. So as a 9-year veteran at the time, you know, I had a lot in my background. Like, you know, I already served my 7 years overseas, and I was 1 month fresh off of my 4th deployment to the Middle East. So I just got back to Virginia 4 weeks ago. Literally, I just took my R&R because the military gives you 2 weeks of vacation time so you can just readjust. Obviously, you're gonna be jet lagged, and obviously you want to spend time with your family and also just relax. I mean, you just came home from 6 or 7 months in the Middle East. I mean, the least they could give you is 2 weeks where you can just relax. So I took those 2 weeks and I officially been at work for 2 weeks. So technically I just went back for a month. And around this time I had a supervisor, right? He was an E6 and I was an E5. So just for the sake of the story, I would like to call him Sergeant Coward, because that's a name that's pretty fitting. So let me give you a background on Sergeant Coward. So he was born and raised in Virginia. He got married to his high school sweetheart. He got into the military and only left his home state of Virginia to go to Texas so he could go to Air Force boot camp. After Air Force boot camp, he came back to Virginia and got stationed in Virginia. Mind you, he's an active duty Air Force airman. He's not a reservist and he's not a guardsman. Because reservists and guardsmen, they're able to go back home and be stationed near their hometown. So it's fair when guardsmen and reservists stay near their hometown. But he's an active duty airman. So that means that you could be stationed worldwide. Mind you, I was an active duty airman myself. That's why I spent 7 years overseas and 3 years on the East Coast. And yes, I did try to come back to California, even Arizona. I tried to take orders to New Mexico, Nevada, Utah. I tried my best to get to the West Coast, but it just never happened for me. I mean, it was cool. I mean, I'm not complaining. You know, I love my time overseas. I love the fact that I lived on the East Coast for 3 years. But at the same time, it's kind of disrespectful when you stay in your home state, near your hometown, at the same base for 20 years. So let me go back to Coward. I forgot to mention that when he joined, it was 2002. So this man knew that the country was at war. Obviously, we're talking September 11, 2001. And if you joined the military in 2002, you already know, it's common knowledge, it's no secret that the United States is at war. So this man joined in 2002, which means this man knows that we are at war. So like I said, he's married, he joins in 2002, and he goes to Texas for boot camp. Then he comes back, gets orders to Virginia, the state where he was born and raised in. This man even had a Virginia Tech tattoo. That's how big of a Virginian he was. And he got stationed in Langley and has been there since 2002. So fast forward to 2015, and that man is still in Virginia, near his hometown, near where his mama lives, and obviously his wife got to stay in her hometown, and now they're raising kids in Virginia. And hey, it's a simple life, you know, and congratulations to him for, I guess, pulling that off. And that's okay to stay at your home station. It's okay to raise your kids where you grew up. It's okay to stay close to your mama. It's okay to stay in the same hometown where your wife is from. However, let's talk about why I get pissed off. Okay, so obviously the story starts where I only have 4 weeks from my 4th deployment to the Middle East. So, you know, I'm still adjusting. Mind you, 30 days ago, I was in the Middle East. So I'm at work one day, and my direct supervisor, who was Sergeant Coward, he came up to me and he goes, "Hey, JD, what do you think about deploying?" And me, you know, just coming off my 4th deployment, I'm like, well, I'm not trying to go back anytime soon. And I was like, why? What's up? So he goes, yeah, man, I just got hit with a deployment. And I was like, oh, okay. You know, me thinking it's normal because, well, you know, I've been in for 9 years. I've deployed 4 times myself. I've seen my friends deploy all the time. You know, obviously this is a very, very common subject in the military. And I was like, oh, all right, Sarge, okay, so when are you leaving? And he goes, well, these orders start 3 weeks from now. So that meant that he needed to be out processed, packed up, and ready to go in 21 days. And that's not a surprise for me. I remember my 2nd deployment, they gave me 14 days to pack up all my stuff and leave. And it was crazy because it was the last 14 days of the year. So it was December 15th. You know, I was out processing all through Christmas and through the New Year. And I was on a plane to Afghanistan January 1st of the next year. So mind you, that wasn't like news to me, or it wasn't surprising. So then I told Sergeant Coward, I was like, oh, okay, so where are you going? And he goes, yeah, man, I got orders to go to Kuwait. And at this moment, I was literally in Kuwait maybe 2 months prior to that conversation because I had to go to Baghdad from Kuwait. So I spent like maybe a couple weeks in Kuwait just in transit. And you know, Kuwait is a different kind of deployment. You know, you're not getting bombed, you're not getting shot at. You know, I don't want to take away from that because I would rather be in Kuwait than any war zone. Yes, I mean, you're still in the desert, you're still hot. You know, you still have to work 12-hour shifts for 6 days a week. You know, so it's an actual deployment. However, like I said, I would rather get deployed to Kuwait than be in a place where, you know, you're getting bombs thrown at you or you're getting shot at. So for me, that's an easy deployment. And I was happy for him. I was like, yo, man, you go to Kuwait? Oh, dude, I'm happy for you. You won't get bombed, you won't get shot at, but he'll still collect hazardous pay. So hey, to me, I was like, yo, that's easy money. So since he saw how excited and how enthusiastic I got because he got orders to Kuwait, he goes, hey man, do you think that you could take these orders from me? And I was like, wait, what do you mean? He goes, yeah man, so I don't want to deploy and I was wondering if you want to take these orders and deploy for the next 6 months. And I look at this man, because mind you, I'm 30 days back into the United States. I just spent half of the previous year in the Middle East. I'm not in a rush to go back. I mean, yes, you know, I'll get some more money, but at the same time, I just came back. So he lets me look at the orders and it said that they needed an E6 for the next 6 months in Kuwait. And I go, yo, these orders are for an E6. I'm an E5. You know, I can't even fulfill these orders. And yes, a lot of times it does happen where a lower ranking person replaces a higher rank. And that kind of sucks because, you know, you're expecting a sergeant, you know, you're expecting a non-commissioned officer, you know, someone with experience, someone with leadership qualities, someone with the actual rank, and then you get a lower ranking person who can't lead or can't, you know, give knowledge as we're in the Middle East and as we're deployed, and that sucks. So I was like, nah man, they're calling for an E6. And then he starts pushing it, like he starts like technically begging me. And then I just pulled out my safe card because at the time there was this rule where they couldn't deploy you if you had less than 6 weeks back in your home station. So like I said, I've been back in the United States for 4 weeks. So technically I can't get orders to the Middle East for at least 2 more weeks. And yes, even though these orders are for 3 weeks from now, but by the numbers, I couldn't go, even if I wanted to go, or even if they were forcing me to go. It was a rule, and since I just got back from my 4th deployment, I really wasn't in a rush to go back. So hey, can you blame me for not volunteering to take his deployment? So as I was explaining myself to Sergeant Coward, I was like, yo Sarge, I literally just got back a month ago from my 4th deployment. You know, why don't you want to take it? Matter of fact, when was the last time you deployed? Now, here's some juicy stuff. So this man, he told me that his last deployment was in 2006 and he went to Balad, Iraq. I look at this man who I knew he was born and raised in Virginia, who was stationed near his hometown for the last 13 years, who's only left his hometown just for the few months where he went to boot camp. And now he explains to me that the last time he went to the Middle East in the last 15 years that we've been at war was in 2006, where he only went for 4 months to Balad, Iraq. So this man almost went a decade without going back to the Middle East. Meanwhile, in that same decade, I lived overseas for 7 years and I'd already deployed 4 times to the Middle East, which is over 2 years of being at war. So I look at this man in disgust. I'm all like, Sarge, you haven't deployed in almost 10 years and you're asking me, someone who just got back 30 days ago from his 4th deployment, to take your deployment. Okay, so that's why I'm so mad that this man had the audacity to ask me to take his deployment after he's never left his hometown, but obviously just for that 4-month deployment in 2006 and obviously boot camp in 2002. I kind of felt disrespected. Like, are you serious? So then after he notices my energy, the fact that I'm just pissed now, because when he said that he hasn't deployed since 2006, that really changed my attitude. Like, it started like boiling my blood. Because at this time, like I said, I've been in for 9 years and I already knew his type. Like, I already knew deployment dodgers, people who try their best to just try to get out of deployments. You know, and as a person who, you know, left his family, who never denied orders to anywhere, I feel like the selfishness of deployment dodgers is literally the most disrespectful thing in the world. Because why the hell are you joining a military that's currently defending a country who's at war, and then all of a sudden not want to do your part in the war? So then I start getting loud, I start getting pissed off, and my attitude just changes. And now, since he's being disrespectful by giving me his background in his service, he comes up with the idea to go speak privately somewhere. Because initially when he started the conversation, we were kind of in a public setting. So since he notices that I see through his BS, he goes, "Hey JD, let's go to the classified vault." And I'm like, "You know what, Sarge? I think we should go to classified vault." Because I was just ready to yell. I was just ready to disrespect this man and even fight, just because I hate deployment dodgers. I just hate them with all my heart. So we go into the classified vault, and I asked him, I was like, "Sarge, why do you think that it's okay for you to ask people to take your deployment when you haven't deployed since 2006? So then he starts giving me these puppy dog eyes. He starts trying to get sympathy and empathy from me. So his body language is different. He's kind of acting defenseless. And like I said, puppy dog eyes. And to also calm down the energy. Because like I said, I was projecting anger. I was projecting this energy that was just saying, "You know what? F you, man." So then he tells me his little stupid story. He goes, "Well, JD, back, on my first and only deployment back in 2006 when I went to Iraq, during those 4 months that I was out there, my wife, she cheated on me. And, those 4 months away from my wife, it really hurt our marriage. And, I don't want to leave her again because, I don't want her to cheat on me again." Hold up. I got hella loud. It's funny, after me yelling, after the whole argument, a lot of people came up to me and they were like, "Dude, I hella heard you yelling from across the room. Were you guys okay? I thought you were gonna kill him in the classified vault." And I don't know, I just thought it was funny because I got hella loud. Obviously, I'm not gonna yell now, but angry, I was like, "What the hell?" I was like, "Sarge, you don't want to deploy because of your whore wife?" And he just looked at me in shock. Because mind you, this is my direct supervisor. But at the same time, stop trying to BS your way out of a deployment. Like I said, I hate deployment dodgers, so there's no sympathy and empathy for me when it comes to them. So like I said, I was like, "You're not deploying because of your whore wife." And I was like, "Yo, that's BS." And then I started giving him also the truth, the stuff that we believe as United States Air Force airmen. Literally day one, before you even get yelled at in boot camp, when you join the Air Force, you see 3 words. 3 words are literally gonna run your entire career while you're in the Air Force. It's integrity, excellence, and service. Those words are blasted in front of every Air Force base. So when you drive into boot camp, you see them blasted on the wall as you're on the bus. And as you're getting off the bus, right before the drill instructor starts yelling at you, you see integrity, excellence, and service blasted in big capital letters on the wall. These are our core values. And every Air Force airman knows that they have to live by these 3 core values. So it's integrity first. You have to do the right thing even when no one's looking. Excellence in all we do. It means that no matter what you do, it has to be excellent. That's the bar. It's not perfection because no one is perfect, but excellence is right there. And that's how we have to treat everything that we do. Excellence in all we do. And the last one is service before self. And service before self is what I started preaching to this man who's been in since 2002, who knows our core values and knows what an airman is all about. So I said, "Sergeant Coward, it's service before self." That means service before your religion, service before your political affiliation, service before any ideas that make you who you are, service before your family, service before your God, and service before your whore wife. And as I was checking this man, he just looks at me like, "Whoa, I can't believe a man is actually telling me this." And it's nothing new. I'm not over here just preaching or let's say making things up and not having a fair argument to tell this man why it's wrong that he's over here trying to give away his orders to the Middle East to somebody else. So he goes, no, JD, you don't understand. I was like, no. I don't care if your wife cheated on you. I mean, yes, I guess it sucks to be cheated on by your wife. But at the same time, you're an active duty military member. I mean, I know a lot of people who get cheated on who are civilian, never leave for work, never have to travel for work, never have to leave, never have to do anything, literally have a 9 to 5 in their hometown, come home every night to be with their kids and with their wives, literally sleep on the same bed with their wives every single night, and their wives are still cheating on them. So a deployment isn't the reason why your wife would cheat on you. I mean, if she's just a whore, then she's just a whore. You know, you can't stop that. So to me, the reason why he didn't want to deploy, obviously because of his whore wife, wasn't a good reason for him not to take his orders. So after me yelling and after me telling this man that, yo, you're stupid, you're an idiot, you're a coward, you know, you haven't deployed since 2006, you know, go serve, you know, you're literally an E6 in the United States Air Force, and you're over here trying to dodge your deployment because you don't want your wife to cheat on you again. Hey, if you don't want that to happen, then get out the Air Force. You know, go do something else where you don't have to deploy, you don't have to travel for your job, and you could pretend like you know that your wife won't cheat on you. So after me yelling and after the argument and after he knew that he wasn't going to get no sympathy points or empathy from me, you know, he just looked down like a coward and he was like, yeah, I totally understand. He opened the door to the classified vault and he left. So, you know, I just had to stay there at the job and, you know, just work my shift. So the next day, I didn't even see the guy. But as I was, you know, working my shift during the next day, I ended up getting a phone call from another airman 2 squadrons down. And this airman was an E4. Obviously, lower ranking from me and lower ranking from E6 Sergeant Coward. So he goes, hey, Sergeant JD, can I talk to you for a bit? And I was like, yeah, man, you know, come to the office. So he gets to my office and he was looking all sad. And I was like, hey, man, you know, like, what's wrong? You know, what's going on? And then he starts telling me, he goes, hey, they just gave me some deployment orders. And I was like, really? Mind you, I was very surprised because this E4 just got back 6 weeks ago from serving 7 months in the Middle East. Now, it wasn't surprising for somebody after 6 weeks to get orders to go right back because I've seen it plenty of times. A lot of my friends who I went to the Middle East with and we'll all come back together got orders literally 6 weeks after we got back. And they had to leave within a couple weeks for like 6 months. So I'm over here trying to comfort this E4 because, you know, he just got back from a 7-month deployment to the Middle East, and also because he was already establishing himself within the last 6 weeks, you know, trying to integrate back into regular life, back into life in Virginia. You know, he had a girlfriend. She stayed with him during his 7-month deployment that he just came from. He actually just got them an apartment together, and he actually just bought a car. You know, like I said, he was just trying to establish himself and integrate back into regular life. And, you know, trying to comfort the guy, I was like, well, you know, how do you feel? And he was like, man, you know, I'm sad. My girlfriend said that, you know, she was gonna break up with me because she can't take another 6-7 months without me and me not being here. I mean, yeah, it's unfair because, mind you, he just came back from being deployed for 7 months. He just got back 6 weeks ago and he just got orders to go back to the Middle East for another 6 months. So yeah, you know, that could take a toll on a relationship, especially if you're just boyfriend and girlfriend. So I was like, you know, you'll be all right, man. I mean, what else can I say? I mean, I'm over here just trying to give him some good words, not, I guess, discourage him or just trying to, you know, bring him down because obviously he was already feeling like that. So I asked him, I'm all like, so where are you going? And he goes, yeah, man, I just got orders to go to Kuwait for 6 months. And I was like, wait, Kuwait? And I was like, oh, you know, Sergeant Coward, he actually told me that he was going there too. And then the E4 goes, no, they're forcing me to take Sergeant Coward's orders. And I was like, what? Sergeant Coward did everything possible to make this E4, mind you, like I said, the orders are for an E6, a technical sergeant, to go to the Middle East, not an E4, a senior airman, someone with less knowledge, less experience to fulfill that position. I mean, yes, when they get there, they don't get the E6 position, but the people who are already there are expecting someone with expertise, with knowledge, with leadership skills, and also the rank so they could help lead. So they don't need another worker. So what happened was Sergeant Coward ran to the chief and basically he just started crying. He was saying, no, you know, I don't want to leave. He started giving like this sad story of, oh, you know, my kid's about to graduate high school. All these dumb excuses that can't cancel out service before self. Oh, you're mad that you're not going to see your kid graduate high school? Guess what? Service before graduation. Oh, you're mad that you can't see your firstborn be born? Guess what? Service before your children. Service before everything. Service before self. That's the point. Nothing else matters in your life but service. And for people who kind of don't understand what I'm saying, that's literally the mentality that you have to have during your time in service. You know, that's the discipline. That's the motivation. That's what keeps you going. And that gives you a reason to keep military members in line when it comes to military service. So Sergeant Coward ran to the chief and did all that. And then he started explaining how how this E4 could do it since he's been back for the last 6 weeks. And the rule of being back for 6 weeks doesn't apply to him anymore. So technically the E4 was the only other eligible person who was able to take those orders other than Sergeant Coward. The chief kind of started thinking about it, but he already knew that E4's name was already in the bucket to go back, or at least be eligible to go back. So the chief was already thinking about it. However, he was leaning more towards no. Sergeant Coward needs to go fulfill these orders because he hasn't deployed since 2006. So you know how he left after our argument? I guess he went to the liquor store, got himself a 12-pack of Natty Ice, you know, that natural ice beer, and he started drinking his sorrows away. So after he drank his beer, he started driving home. And on his way home, he hit a pedestrian. And the story was when he hit the guy that was walking on the sidewalk, the guy fell down and Sergeant Coward got out, saw that he hit a person, got scared, got back in his car, and drove home. Fortunately, someone pulled over and saw the guy knocked out on the road, called the cops, and fortunately the guy survived and was able to describe Sergeant Coward's car to the cops. So 5 blocks from the incident, they found Sergeant Coward's car in his driveway. And there was like hella damage in the front, like broken lights, you know, broken bumper. That's how hard he hit the pedestrian. So that's why I didn't see him at work the next day. He was going through that legal issue. I guess he was locked up because of hit and run or on bail or something like that, but there was some legal stuff that he was going through that next day because he was drinking and driving and he hit somebody. So now, since he has legal stuff he has to deal with back home, obviously, because he was drinking and driving and he hit somebody and he left, which is a hit and run. Now at this very moment, because of those legal issues, technically he couldn't leave the state. So what does that mean? It means that the only eligible airman to take those orders was an E4 who literally just got back 6 weeks ago from serving his tour in the Middle East. Now he has to take those orders and leave for the next 6-7 months to Kuwait. So Sergeant Coward, the man who only left his hometown to go to boot camp, only deployed one time to the Middle East for 4 months in the last 13 years, who got cheated on during his 4-month deployment, just got out of deploying again. So the E4, he now needed to leave and fill those orders within the next 2 weeks. He had to cancel his lease of his brand new apartment, put everything in storage, outprocess Langley, Virginia, and unfortunately his girlfriend broke up with him and he had to leave for the next 6 months. So that's just one story and one reason why I hate deployment dodgers. Because they're very selfish. They think that only their life matters. I mean, okay, let's have some empathy for Sergeant Coward and say, okay, maybe he shouldn't deploy because he has a whore for a wife. And that's sad. That's sad to have, you know, an unfaithful spouse and all that jazz. Okay, but why can't we also have empathy and sympathy for the E4, you know, who just got back from deployment, who had a relationship, who was just trying to establish himself, who had to break his lease in his brand new apartment? Why is it that we only have to have sympathy and empathy for the deployment dodger? Why? Because in the end, the fact that they don't fulfill those orders affects different people in a negative manner. It wasn't the E4's turn to deploy, you know, and I've seen that happen so many times when people try to avoid orders to the Middle East and it negatively affects the person who is replacing them, who is taking those orders. And that really grinds my gears. You know, it really boils my blood that other people get negatively affected. Like literally their lives, you know, everything, relationships, every aspect of life is affected just because you don't want to go. Look, if you don't want to go, get out the service. Easy. Fortunately, the Air Force has always been creative enough to divide certain months and give you certain blocks and also tell you in advance when you're gonna go on deployment, just to make it as fair as possible to every member in the Air Force. Because obviously it sucks to leave your family. Yes, okay, you're right. Yeah, that sucks. Obviously it sucks to leave the country and be in a war zone for the next 6 to 7 months. Yes, it sucks, but it's a part of military life. There's no such thing as a draft nowadays. Every member in the United States military right now is a volunteer. And if you joined from September 12, 2001 all the way to 2021, you knew that the country was at war. So you shouldn't be surprised that you might be going to war during your time of service. There's this joke that some military members that, you know, they like to share whenever, you know, they go through some family problems during their time of service. The joke is, if the military wanted you to have a family, they would have issued you one. You know, because a lot of times we have to fulfill our orders and we have to leave our families. And that sucks. You know, fortunately, I didn't have kids during my 10 years in the military, but multiple times I saw people in Afghanistan watch their kids be born, watch their kids graduate high school through Skype. And even sometimes they get pictures or DVDs burned and sent to them through the mail, and that's how they watch family events. And yeah, all that sucks, you know, that you can't be there during those experiences, during those events. But it's just something that you signed up for. You know, like I said, you're a volunteer. And it's very commendable. Now, as a father, I see how hard it is to leave your child. I never had the experience of leaving my child behind, you know, because I had to fulfill orders. But now I completely understand, because I never want to leave, you know, my baby. I want to see my baby every single day. So I commend every single military member who has children and who has deployed. Those people are literally the strongest people alive. Because now, as a father, I know I couldn't do it, but those honorable people, those courageous people, those courageous parents who leave their kids behind and go to the Middle East and go serve, you know, those people are actually doing what they signed up to do. But to think that your family is more special or more important than the next military family, and you negatively affect another military family just because you want to be a coward and deny your orders to the Middle East over some family issues, nah, to me that just doesn't sit right. You know, nobody is more important than anybody in life. And my point is just, if you can't fulfill your orders during your time in service, then just get out. Stop wasting people's time. You know, if you don't want to go to war, then don't join the military. And that's okay. That's fine. That's 100% fine if you don't want to go to war. Just like we were talking about earlier, how draft dodgers didn't want to go to war. I'm pretty sure they didn't even want to join the military. And that's fine. But if you volunteer to join the service during time at war, you shouldn't be trying your best to dodge your deployments. And that's why it pisses me off. And I'm sorry, but I just hate deployment dodgers. So I guess to just end the story, the E4, like I said, his girlfriend broke up with him, and you know, he was extra sad. You know, obviously your girlfriend of a couple years, you know, she couldn't handle it, and he just took the orders, and he ended up serving those 6 months after just being home for 2 months. So in the last 14 months, he was only back in the United States for 2 months. And as far as Sergeant Coward, well, later on he started coming back to work, you know, after he spent like a night in jail and got bailed out, you know, after his drunk driving hit and run. And I didn't know the outcome of his legal stuff, just because I ended up getting out the military and I didn't want to know anything about this man. So I didn't keep up with him, and I didn't keep up with what happened with him. And I'm not wishing bad on nobody, but I just hope that karma, you know, got the man. But hey, I'm not wishing bad on anybody. However, you get what you put out. But one thing that I did know was that, you know, that E4, after he came back from his deployment, well, I think I was already gone at the time. But, you know, it's funny, he actually found me on LinkedIn, because, I mean, me and him, you know, we had a good relationship. And on LinkedIn, out of all places, he told me that he was just very, very bitter about how they treated him. I mean, I would be bitter too, because, you know, as we know, he did the 6 months, came back for 2, left against for 6. Well, he just felt very bitter about it, and he refused to re-enlist. Fortunately, he actually got out with his bachelor's degree, and now he works as a government contractor in his home state. And you know, I was happy when I found that out, when he told me how amazing he was doing and how he was successful outside of the military. You know, I was just happy to hear that all that was going on, even though he went through that bad experience and bad period in his life, you know, with the breakup and the deployment and all that stuff. I mean, I can only imagine how stressful it could have been. I'm just happy that when he got out, he was able to build a good life for himself. I mean, he was actually one of our smartest troops. He was very hardworking, and it's just unfortunate that situations like that make our military lose our best troops just because of selfish people. And you know, he only served his first enlistment, and after being filled with bitterness, unfortunately, he got out. I say unfortunately because, like I said, he was one of our best troops. And yes, even though Sergeant Coward just technically got a felony, you know, after the hit and run, he was still able to continue being in the military. So I mean, who would you rather have? You know, a smart, hardworking man who is down for the cause, who would never deny orders, or, you know, this coward over here trying to get out of all his orders, always BSing, not taking care of his people at his rank where he's expected to do it, and getting felonies. I'm just saying, the military has a habit of doing it. And after my 10 years of serving, I've seen so much of that happen, where I've seen good people, matter of fact, amazing people get forced out by these people who are just jealous and cowardly. But hey, fortunately, I'm not in anymore, and I'm just a guy telling some stories. But in the end, at least we get to know that the E4 had a happy ending. So that's my explanation of a deployment dodger. That's just one story. I'll drop some more deployment dodger stories for you guys, and that was just a random story from my time in the military. Let me know what you guys think. Do you think it was a good story? Do you want to hear more stories about these coward deployment dodgers? Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm harsh? Do you think I was being too tough, or even being too ate up? You know, was I wrong to think that Sergeant Coward was wrong? Or do you think I was right? Do you agree with me? I mean, what do you think? Well, please let me know in the comments below, and make sure you subscribe. Make sure you also hit that like button for me so it can help me out with the YouTube algorithm. I appreciate your time. Thanks.